Hello one and all, Jasper here, and I want to talk about the Unsullied and Dothraki for a bit. In the series, both the book and the show, they are portrayed and spoken about in the highest regard, being considered some of the greatest warriors and soldiers in the world. And I'm here to tell you that in truth, it's a bunch of bullshit. The Dothraki and Unsullied are pathetic, and you would be better off conscripting farmers with sharpened hoes to fight for you. Now, I know this is a pretty big claim, right? Taking two cultures that are praised by the likes of Jorah, Barristan, Robert, and even Oberyn, and saying these experts in war and fighting are wrong. Well, I'm going to do it, because these characters are not real, they are created by George R.R. Martin, and I just so happen to have the same amount of war experience as he does, that being none at all, though I have less experience in running away from war. So, credit where credit is due. Either way, I am blessed with the power of the internet, so research for me is far easier and less time-consuming than it was for George when he was making these books. But that's enough stalling. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes of my argument, starting with the Unsullied. Now, the most obvious issue with the Unsullied that I have is they have no balls, and I mean that literally. Starting off as enslaved boys, the masters of Astapor would castrate them at the age of 5, before puberty, meaning that as the child gets older, he's not getting the same amount of testosterone as every other man, meaning they will be a great deal weaker than almost any force they come across. Don't worry though, it gets worse, as it's possible these guys don't even wear any armor. They are described wearing spiked helms and wielding shields, and that's it. These guys are cosplaying as Spartans from 300, but with none of the muscle. Apparently, this is made up by the amount of discipline and loyalty they have, which I admit is important. But I would argue you can get a similar level of discipline and loyalty and still let them keep their balls. The Spartans are a perfect example of this. You would be hard-pressed to find any army more disciplined than them. The only way an Unsullied soldier might be a better choice is if in serving as a guard to a lady, as they lack the tools to do the old rumpy-pumpy with them. Though, ironically, while the masters used to sell Unsullied in groups of 10 for such situations, they stopped because apparently the Unsullied would start to act like actual people. So now, they are only sold in groups of 100 or 1,000. So I hope you have a big-ass harem to justify having all those castrated guards, because they're not going to be great for actual warfare or battles. Don't even get me started in how they fight. The Unsullied use a formation in the old style of the Giscari legions, but to use a real-world example, the best would be the Greeks and their use of the phalanx. This is a completely outdated fighting style. To put it in perspective, the phalanx fell out of fashion in our world roughly around 350 BC. The main reason being its lack of flexibility and openness to flanking. Now, the world of Westeros can be compared to the 14th century of our world, meaning the tactics and fighting styles that the Unsullied use are a millennium behind what could be implemented in this world. This fighting style also highlights another massive issue, that being the Unsullied are not a versatile army. I hope you like spear infantry with a backup short sword, because that is all you're getting. No cavalry, no archers, just boots on the ground footmen. It could be worse though. These guys could be the Dothraki, possibly the only military force worse than the Unsullied. Now, in theory, the Dothraki should be the superior force. They keep their balls, so they have more strength. They use bows and arrows, and have a strong focus on horsemanship, so more versatility in warfare. So why are they worse? Because they are just dumb, poor Mongolians. At least the Unsullied have the excuse that their dumb masters are holding them back. The Dothraki have no one to blame but themselves. Why don't they wear any protection or armor? Because it's cowardly, still better than being dead. And let's be honest, when your go-to strategy is riding down your enemy in a frontal charge, a little bit of protection goes a long way. And I'm not saying they need to deck themselves out in full plate armor like European knights, or even the heavy iron-woven lamellar armor of the Mongolians. Just give them some generic-ass fantasy leather armor that can stop a random arrow from ruining their day, and already the threat the Dothraki pose increases dramatically. Until then, however, I refuse to believe that these guys could pose a threat to anything more formidable than a village that doesn't have any cattle troughs. Threatening the great city of Cahor and wiping out their professional army? Bullshit. Unless those Dothraki horses learn how to jump 20 to 30 feet in the air, that should never happen. For fuck's sake, these guys are based on a culture that created the second largest empire in the world. The Dothraki would be lucky to hold on an acre of land by comparison. Keep in mind, in the lore, they faced off against the Unsullied. They could have easily won, but they have too much pride and not enough brain cells to think or even attempt an idea that was more complicated than charging into spears. Robert constantly talking about how terrifying the Force would be if they invaded Westeros. My man, they couldn't take over a single kingdom, let alone all 7. The only reasonable thing the Dothraki could do effectively is loot and pillage villages that are lightly defended. But at that point, you're not really a culture of warriors, are you? More like a culture of pests. They should stop worshipping the Great Stallion because their true calling is clearly the Horned Rat. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. The Unsullied and Dothraki are the most overhyped armies in the entire franchise. But what are your thoughts? Do you think the Unsullied and Dothraki have some merit that I'm ignorant of? Or maybe you agree with me. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Until then, be safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.